What would it look like for your business to improve your demand forecasting accuracy by double digits? That's what we're going to be talking about today. My name is Ian Schaefer. I'm a business strategist here at FlexFab. I have Ryan Knox, who's the Director of Marketing and Innovation for FlexFab, and he has seen amazing success using the software Remy for demand forecasting accuracy improvement. And we have the co-founder of Remy, Eamonn Barrett, joining us today. How are you doing, gentlemen?
Very well. Great to be here.
Yeah,
excellent.
thank you.
If you two don't mind just starting us off with a brief introduction, then we'll jump into some really practical, real-time questions.
Go ahead, Eamonn.
Oh, sure. I'll go first. Hi everyone. Great to be here, as said. Co-founding partner at REMI AI, where we help retailers, wholesalers, and manufacturers to bring AI and machine learning into their supply chains. So we do that in a couple of different ways. One of them is certainly forecasting and inventory management, or two of them, sorry, are forecasting and inventory management, which we'll be talking about today. And we also help e-commerce businesses with things like price optimization and a few other things. So that's us in the very brief nutshell.
Yeah, and I'm Ryan Knox. I'm the Director of Marketing and Innovation at FlexFab. FlexFab is a manufacturer, specifically components for the automotive, heavy-duty truck, and aerospace industries, as well as some industrial markets. And I'm really excited to talk about the Remy product today.
Excellent. So Ryan, starting with you, you're the one using the software. When we think about demand forecasting, it's a big thing to think about. There's a lot to think through. But if we think about it as a root issue, what are some of the symptoms that stem from that being a big problem within your business?
Yeah, I think pretty much every manufacturer, really probably most companies, have some of these issues. It's just a matter of how extreme is based on the market that you're in, and how much you can control the internal versus external impacts. But for us, the symptoms are operational challenges and inefficiencies. That what they typically would look like are things like scheduling issues with your manufacturing process. They could look like expediting fees. It could be having to carry too much inventory. Your inventory turns go down. Your cash flow also decreases, harms operational efficiency, profitability, morale. People are working on trying to catch up or last minute needs versus strategic objectives. So there's so many things depending on the company. There's so many things that you face as symptoms as a result of demand forecasting being off.
Thank you for sharing that experience. And so when we think about demand forecasting, Eamonn, we'll start with you. What are some of the most common pitfalls when you hear those symptoms? You go and try and solve them. What are some of the most common things that people run into when trying to tackle this large beast?
So from our end, what we're seeing is that it's very industry dependent, of course, but generally speaking, when you've got slow moving products, when you've got lumpy demand, when you've got some customers which might buy quite sporadically, but when they do buy, the demand is that the orders are really, really high or really, really large. If you're working in an industry where you're heavily affected by external factors, so Ryan, you just mentioned before, dealing with like sales data coming in from large customers and using that as a data input, and if that data isn't of high enough quality, then your forecasts are going to be off, of course. So there are many different challenges, very, very industry dependent, but all what they boil down to, I suppose, are two things. One of them is low forecast accuracy, and the second is that as a result, it just creates a lot of manual work for your staff. So that manual work might be in amending forecasts because the outputs just aren't really good enough. So they spend a lot of time doing that. And the second is just, as you said, Ryan, the down the line business impacts that are lower inventory turnover, too much inventory on hand, impacted cash flow, and et cetera. So that's very much what we're seeing.
And that's the negative symptoms, but there are positive symptoms that I think we're going to get to for good demand forecasting.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking about the inverse, where machine learning forecasting really comes into its own is that if you think about what a traditional forecasting approach might be, you're just looking at historical sales and then you're spitting out a number, and you might be making all of your amendments after the fact. So if you know that that big customer is going to place an order next week, or you know that you're doing a promotion, for example, you're making all of your adjustments to the forecast output after it comes out of the forecasting engine. Whereas with a machine learning approach, you can actually just feed all of that data in right at the start, and so it's all being considered. And so you can have a lot more trust, I suppose, in the forecast output, given that it has access to all of the data if you've given it to it, that is, rather than you having to do all of the adjustments after the fact.
Excellent. So Eamonn, as FlexFab, when we were looking at different technology options to improve our demand forecasting accuracy, you start throwing around terms like AI, machine learning. It can be a little bit overwhelming. And, we've been around a long time and have had a lot of success. What is, one of our biggest hurdles or things we wanted to consider was training and onboarding. Walk me through what that looks like from, hey, we're doing this today. It seems like a massive undertaking to look at technology like this. What do you guys do about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of items to talk through here. The first one is in the way that we integrate typically with internal customer systems. The second is training, and the third is in documentation. So just tackling the first, the data that we need that we need to run the models at our end typically comes from a client's ERP system. And so what we're usually doing is just tapping directly into that system so that we can be pulling out daily sales, any updated product information, new products, things like that. And then we can start to provide forecasts and inventory recommendations for those. So what that typically means is that at a day-to-day level, users don't have to do anything. The data is flowing. They don't have to be worrying about downloading Excel sheets and sending it to us. That's all done automatically. So to set that up, it does take a couple of weeks at the start of a project. But when you compare that to what else is out there in the market, I mean, for some enterprise software solutions, you're looking at a 1 to 2 year project when you consider all onboarding, training, testing, and go live. So we're quite lightweight overall in the market in that way. The second is in user training. So I had a customer quote to me on Friday, actually, during a training session that we need to go a little bit slower with them than we were, because going from the Excel sheets that they were using to our platform, in their words, was like going from a billy cart to a Ferrari. So we've taken that on board. But yeah, in any case, we do quite detailed user training, and it's very interactive, and there's lots of feedback, as you'd imagine. And that's quite tailored to the customer. So if they're a small e-commerce company and they're up and running in a couple of days, that's very, very easy. If they're a large enterprise customer and there's a large demand planning team that needs lots of training, we work with that as well. And then the final piece is in documentation. So we've got a detailed knowledge base online, which, as you'd imagine, has lots of information on definitions and how the platform works. And if I want to do this, how do I approach this problem, and things like that. So they're the three areas that we have to approach onboarding and try to make it as easy as possible.
The funny thing is pretty much everyone has an ERP system, and you would think just turning on some demand forecasting tool on your ERP system would actually be the fastest way and the least expensive, but that's actually not the case, at least from what we found at FlexFab. Modifying the ERP system, because Eamonn said the data comes from the ERP, you would think would be easy, but modifying your ERP system, training your team to use it, the cost of implementing it, and all of those things that come with it, I've found is substantially more expensive and more time consuming versus something like implementing a product like Remy, which is a really exciting value proposition for those people out there that don't have endless amounts of time available, which I think is pretty much everyone in supply chain right now.
Excellent. Well, Eamonn, I know you guys work with Coca-Cola. They're a great example of a company that has not very many SKUs, but incredible volume. FlexFab has a ton of SKUs, but less volume than Coca-Cola, but I think we do all right for ourselves. But how does this technology scale for companies of different sizes? And, why is someone like Coca-Cola choosing to use Remy over, maybe doing some internal technology or other software technology that's out there addressing these issues?
So for large companies, starting in, the beauty of this software is that it's all based on the cloud, meaning that theoretically it's infinitely scalable. So I say theoretically because we clearly haven't pushed it to the limit, that limits quite yet, but we do work with plenty of large businesses, and they are many orders of magnitude larger than some of our smallest customers, and we haven't hit capacity issues yet. So it's not the kind of challenge where you run out of server space on your local server. Like it's all on the cloud, meaning that we can scale it up and down as required.
Excellent, thank you. So Ryan, you guys have been using the Remy software for a little while now. Tell me a little bit more about the success that you guys have had and what that's looked like.
Yeah, the Remy software, like I said earlier, it is really hitting a root problem that affects so many different areas of the business, all the way from profitability to operational efficiency to morale. And so when we started looking for something like Remy, we felt like if we could improve our demand forecasting by 5, 10, maybe 15%, it would have a humongous impact on our organization. It would literally impact probably at least 60%, 70% of the people that work at FlexFab because you're going to have so much better operational efficiency, which impacts all these different things like purchasing of raw materials and scheduling and all of these things are impacted. And so we felt like 5, 10, 15%, somewhere in that range seemed like it would be a home run for implementing something like Remy. So what we did was before we got started, we implemented or we tested we back tested the data to determine how would it have performed previously versus reality versus what we actually performed. We actually found that Remy had a 60% accuracy improvement, demand forecasting accuracy improvement 8 weeks before, which 8 weeks is a really important number for FlexFab. The reason why is because, especially in our China facility, we have a 12-week lead time, but our customers give us an 8-week lead time. So there's a lot of educated guessing and the minimal kind of formulas that go into trying to figure out how much should we produce. Well, typically what happens when you're educated guessing, well, you don't have enough wiggle room in your timing to get you the products late. And if anybody listening to this is an automotive or heavy duty truck or aerospace markets, on-time delivery is king. It's the most important. So people just produce too much. Well, when you can improve that number by 60%, what you've just done is you've taken it from an educated guess to a scientific approach of using technology that's going to learn and adapt and adjust over time using machine learning to improve itself. Not only that, but if the methodologies that were used to get that 60% for each SKU, if Remy eventually figures out those aren't the most accurate ways or the most efficient ways of forecasting your demand in the future, it'll actually automatically review and adjust to even more efficient. Which, if you think about that, there would be companies that would pay consultants huge amounts of money just to figure out what demand forecasting algorithms or formulas are right for their company, let alone their product, let alone analyzing it on a weekly or monthly or whatever basis, automatically and confirming that it's the most efficient. So we got the awesome results, but maybe even more importantly, we have a scientific, technology focused way of really using our demand forecasting or doing our demand forecasting going forward, which to me was just as important as the number 60%.
All right, Eamonn, if you don't mind, open the hood, crack the hood on Remy a little bit for us. I know there's a lot of people who are doing great things in Excel, and it's not entirely manual. But if they were attempting to do some of the things that Remy or some of the machine learning software out there is able to do, you were trying to do that manually through existing processes, what would that look like? Unpack that for us a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So without giving away too much IP, if I can avoid it, there are sort of, I guess, three key things to talk through under the hood in the Remy engine. So, and I'll compare that to Excel. So the first one is in data cleaning or data cleansing. So as the data comes in from the ERP systems, we are cleansing and formatting to make sure it is in the right format for forecasting. So, I mean, as everybody on the call would likely know, data that comes out of ERP can be full of free text, it can be full of custom fields. There are all sorts of things in there which may or may not be relevant to forecasting. So we've got processes in place within the engine to cleanse before it goes into the forecasting engine. The second is in the number of models that we have and the different types of approaches that we have to forecasting. So, Ian, to your point, comparing to Excel, the types of forecasting that you can do in Excel is typically just based around some sort of linear regression or logistic regression. And they're founded in statistics. So we have statistical approaches within the engine because they've been around for decades. They do work reasonably well. If you have products which are, they sell reasonably consistently and there's a seasonality and there might be a trend, statistics is okay. You might do an okay job there. But where statistics really falls down is where there are large external factors, such as those that we mentioned at the start of the episode. You might have large customer orders coming in. You might have really slow demand. You might have lumpy demand. You might have competitor behavior, world events. Things like this which really impact your demand. So statistics struggles under those circumstances, and so we've got two other groups or camps, I suppose, of forecasting. The first one is based around probability, and so that it looks at the forecasting challenge from a different angle. So it doesn't treat it as a discrete output. It looks at the forecast output as a probability distribution, and that's really good for slow-moving products. And then the third one is in the machine learning forecasting domain. So that's for anyone interested that wants to try and build it on their own. We've got neural networks, we've got decision trees, we've got random forests in there. And these work in many different ways, which I won't get into, but they're really useful in that they can take in a whole lot of external data streams, and as I said before, consider those before they produce the output. So with all that in mind, we've got all of these forecasting approaches sitting in our pool, and as we bring on a new customer, such as FlexFab, we actually run all of your products through every model that we have. And then only the most accurate model is taken forward for each product. And so what that means is that you have a bespoke forecasting model for every product in your catalog. And that is then checked for accuracy every month and retrained if needed. So there's a bit going on under the hood compared to Excel. So yeah, our key selling position, I suppose, when we do have to compare to Excel, is that you can compare more data, or you can include more data. We can automatically clean it for you. We can automatically pull it out for you. The accuracy is typically a lot higher because you have bespoke models per product, and the user amendments that need to be made after the fact are a lot lower. So yeah, that's quick comparison.
Excellent. Well, Eamonn, thank you so much for your technical insight today. Ryan, for your hands-on experience. For anyone listening, if you'd like to learn more about this project or more about Remy, feel free to go to flexfab.ai and you'll find all the information right there. And we'll see you on the next one.